My fellow Americans, this is Mark Twain 2.0. I was such a hit last week that YouTube invited me to do a second segment of my updated version of the 1968 to 1973 TV comedy show, Laugh-In. If you're indoors due to the health crisis, practicing social distancing, then I've come back from the beyond temporarily to help you laugh a little more while you're indoors. My guardian angel in the heavenly heights asked me before I left if I needed Rowan and Martin to come along with me. And I said to the angel, "Who are they? They can't be any funnier than I am." Now, I've been dead 110 years on April 21st, so you can imagine how fascinated I am with all your technological gadgets. I am more than impressed with how you stay connected with family and friends, both near and far. Why, just think of all the money you're saving by staying home and laughing with one another instead of going to visits with your psychotherapist. Your computers and your iPads are lifelines during this health crisis. Now, back in my day, this fishing pole was a lifeline as we practiced social distancing circa 1850s. Now, in the early 1900s, this Underwood typewriter number 5 was a social lifeline. Compared to this iPad, you can see it was a dinosaur. Why, it took me 5 minutes to just put a piece of paper in before I started typing. In 5 minutes, you can network with thousands of people around the world using this iPad. Why, the technology is truly astounding. Now, I can only imagine what it must be like to be confined to your homes during this health crisis. I am happy to report that with the help of this tape measure, I have mastered the art of keeping a 6 feet distance from myself. It becomes a problem at night, however, when my shadow won't cooperate. Now, I know it's one thing to be confined indoors during a national emergency, but it's quite another thing to be confined indoors with only your family, especially if you don't like them. Before this crisis, you could escape from them during the day by going to either school or work or locking yourself away in a room. But coronavirus has changed all that. You're forced to either learn to get along or to fight fair. Now, some of you, I'm sure, are going insane. My doctor once asked if any members of my family suffered from insanity. And I told him no, we all seem to enjoy it. Now, back in my day, when there was a health crisis, we never had this hand sanitizer. I've studied the ingredients, and I'm pleased to see that it has 63% alcohol. Now, when I was growing up, alcohol was something you drank and wouldn't dare to apply to your hands. Why, I would consider it a total waste of good whiskey if you poured it on your hands. And I'm sure Jim Beam and Johnny Walker would agree with me. But the hand sanitizer has inspired me to discover a new wine just for this crisis. And I'm calling it Selfie Quarantini. Now, I belong to a book club in the Heavenly Heights, but we only read wine labels. So I've shipped several cases of Selfie Quarantini to my friends for their next gathering. I noticed on the internet that one shipping option was a company called Amazon. But my book club doesn't reside in the South American rainforest. So I shipped the cases on Heavenly Air, which is much faster and cheaper than overnight delivery, since in heaven there's only daylight. Now, some of you out there have been using this quarantine time to downsize your house. Well, you've inspired me to do the same. So I'm downsizing this large hall bench, and I'm replacing it with a much smaller bench. And I'm also downsizing these large pictures with much smaller pictures. This is what you mean by downsizing, isn't it? And finally, I'm downsizing this adult rocking chair with a much smaller rocking chair that can accommodate only people who are 3 years or younger. This is what you mean by downsizing, isn't it? Now, if only someone out there in the internet land can think of a creative way to downsize the federal government. On more than one occasion, during my mortal life, many people asked me why I never ran for Congress, and my response was always the same. Suppose you were an idiot, and suppose you were in Congress, but then I repeat myself. One of the things I disapprove about Congress is that they do not know how to give their tongues a rest. The more urgently they want to speak and befriend every microphone that is placed in front of them, the more likely it is they will say something foolish. They need to learn to practice the wisdom of a sage who once said, "I have often regretted of speaking, but never of keeping quiet." Why, all the talking they did, day and night, to approve the latest economic stimulus package during this crisis, could have fueled the utilities of the District of Columbia through the next century. Well, my fellow Americans, I want to encourage you to continue to enjoy all your different versions of laughing as you self-quarantine, and I thank you for the laughter you're spreading across the land during this crisis and enabling everyone to enjoy it through the internet. You make America great.